Okay. Okay, and all right. If you can hear my voice and see my screen, drop a one in the chat, please. Number one in the chat, please. Welcome. Happy Friday. It is time for our weekly recap, where we just recap the market based off what we're looking at on Sunday or Monday. I think this week we were on Monday when we had our class for our outlook. So let's kind of get into what went on this week. Very good movements this week. A lot of our stuff that we're expecting did happen. And hopefully this is a good sign for everyone to just know that having a overall bias and kind of sticking to it based off what price is showing is very important. A lot of our key concepts and key understanding of the market will be displayed during this recap. And hopefully that's going to help and aid all of you in understanding, why we look at the market the way that we do. Okay. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's go to the dollar. And let me get my annotation. And actually, let me check really quickly. This is the correct weekly recap. Okay, cool. All right. So this is the mighty dollar. We were expecting bullish price action. We were monitoring to see what would happen when price hit this area. We saw from Friday of last week that we did have a nice little pop from that zone, right? If we were going to go bearish, we knew exactly where we were running into to fill up this imbalance and come back into this order block, or ultimately attack the liquidity down here if we're going to go to the bearish side. But we saw the reaction from Friday. By the time Monday came through, we knew that we had our bias set, right? Because Monday closed like this, a lot of momentum to the upside. We had the equal highs that we had here and here, so we knew that we were trying to go up there. By Tuesday night's class, by the end of it, we saw how we closed. We closed with this nice little triple top here. And we knew for sure that price was looking to aim for the high side, right? There's almost no question in which direction we were expecting price to go. And by the time Wednesday and Thursday came through, we can see just how price reacted. And by Thursday's price closure, right, because once we kind of broke past the quote-unquote resistance, we knew the highs that we were going for, and we knew the imbalance that we were looking to attack. And by the time Thursday closed, we knew Friday was looking to fill that up. And then now we're reaching for price to get into this order block and ultimately this high. Right, so we'll discuss about where price is looking to go next week. But ultimately, this is what we're expecting. Tuesday night, we wanted to see price tap into the imbalance here just a little bit. We did go, just barely, right? I have to really, really stretch out the daily here for y'all to see it, right? We just barely tapped into it, right? And on the 1 hour time frame, where we were expecting, price to come back into, right? We had like a little area here, I think on the 15-minute. Let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, on the 15-minute, we had an area just underneath the low of Tuesday and just underneath deeper into the imbalance, right? Obviously, we see that price did not go that far. However, it doesn't mean anything is out of our scope here, right? All our expectation was still there. Because Wednesday's price action kind of alluded to the fact. From Wednesday, we had a nice dip into the imbalance that took out the low from Tuesday. leaving an order block here. We had news come through, I think on Wednesday, the FOMC minutes news, right? We see a very quick move down. Price ends up coming into our point of interest. And from there, price now starts to walk on up, right? And by the time Thursday, price action came into the scope here. Okay, by the time Thursday's price action came to the scope, despite the sell-off during London session, by New York session time, when we are looking to, I guess, catch a trade, if you will, well, what can we see? Well, for one, equal highs. And this is not just equal highs on the 1 hour and the 15-minute, right? Remember, this is a triple top, maybe even quadruple, you can say. 1, 2, 3, 4. This whole zone, retail traders are looking as a resistance. So we knew straight up that price was looking by Thursday to end up going higher, right? So also another understanding that sometimes patience is a virtue. We have to kind of just wait for price action to develop. But nevertheless, we could clearly see price walking on higher, eventually hitting our targets. And we see that clearly on the 15-minute and then some. And by Friday, we hit the 50% of the Asian range and we continue going higher to fill in the imbalance. Now, how does this look on, excuse me, on like Forex pairs, right? So that's like the dollar. In all intents and purposes was a bullish dollar this week. We got exactly that, right? What about the other pairs? So EU, I kind of switched up the order now. Now we have EU right after look at the dollar, because EU and EU and the DXY, the Dixie, they're inversely correlated, right? They're very tied to each other. So hence why we look at it right after, right? But stemming from last week and now looking into what we were looking for this week, much of the same, right? A lot of the same. We were monitoring the rejection from price at this imbalance fill. With Monday's price action kind of exploding lower, and with Tuesday closing the way it did, and by Tuesday's nice class, we knew we were looking to sell. And we wanted price to tap into the imbalance, taking out Tuesday's high to continue that sell. And we knew for sure it was going to sell some more because we had the equal lows. Like, so Monday night, we marked off this low here from the previous week, and we knew that we were targeting lows for shorts. When Tuesday created this low here, I mean, it is very equal. The low from the third is 1.01227, and the low from Tuesday is 1.01222. So a 5 pipettes, not even a pip, half a pip of a difference in price. So very equal. A lot of money sitting there because retail traders looking at this as a support to go higher. But we know that's far-fetched, and most likely price is going to go lower, which it did. And we had targets. We had the equal low targets. We had this low here that we were looking for price to tap into, I want to say 2 weeks ago at this point. But not only that, we also had the imbalance being here with this order block. So we knew that price was looking to go lower. Okay. Just something for comparison. Let me put the daily here, and let me put this compare tool. Where is it? Compare. Let's do the DXY real quick. And I want to show you, oh crap, hold up. Didn't mean to do that. Let's try this again. DXY, new price scale. Okay. And let's change this to candlesticks. All right. So when we look at the correlation between these two pairs, right? And remember, we're talking about the imbalance for the two. Let's hide all the drawings and hide everything just so we can have a clean canvas, right? So we can pretty much see that the dollar and Euro USD mirrors each other, right? This looks like if we could draw a straight line here, it's like a mirror. It reflects. And on Euro USD, we had this imbalance that we're looking at and monitoring. That price just barely, well, actually went a little bit deeper, but we're looking at that for price to poke into. And on the same scope, we had on the dollar here, that same imbalance. Now notice the difference, right? And some of the similarities. Still have the same relatively equal highs for the dollar with the same relatively equal lows for the euro. Now on this Wednesday trading, we see that Wednesday for euro took out the high of Tuesday, and we just saw on the Dixie that we just barely took out the low from Tuesday, right? But we can clearly see that euro had the deeper penetration into the liquidity from Tuesday's high. And that's something that we could use to our advantage when we want to see similarities and want to see like if price is truly moving in the intended direction that we are expecting. Right. So I think with this kind of comparison is something that you guys can do for your studies over the weekend to kind of see the correlation and see, okay, there was all signs and intents and purposes of price going to the downside for euro while the dollar was continuing to go higher, right? Now let's kind of dive into the price action here of the euro on a lower scale. So let's concentrate during the middle of the week here, right? And we actually spoke about Euro USD during the boot camp yesterday. If you weren't part of the boot camp, probably a student now, so you probably don't need it. But if you have anybody who's interested in trading with us, you could look out for our boot camps. We'll be having them, I want to say weekly. So just be on the lookout on our social medias and even on the platform when we announce further boot camp dates. But it's a good introduction to what we talk about here. And you can kind of see some of the markups that we were speaking about, at least for euro. And in that sense, we can see that from Wednesday, we finally have price pierce up above the high from Tuesday. And from there, we're starting to see some breakdown. And that breakdown occurs where we see this low kind of breaking this low. And matter of fact, we could even say that's creating some equal lows for liquidity purposes. So by Thursday, when price comes back into the 1 hour order block that's highlighted, right? And then we look into that area on the 15-minute, okay, we can kind of see how the manipulation in play starts to happen. When price breaks down beneath the Asian range, we trade back, looking like structure is going bullish, only for price to hit the 50% of Asian range and just switch. Not only that, we see on the 15-minute time frame that when price did decide to break down, it leaves the imbalance. We poke above that imbalance and then we fall. Now, the 15-minute, you may be asking yourself, well, Curve, what was the entry for order block, right? Especially if I'm not taking an entry based off of the 1 hour here. Well, let's go down to the 4-minute time frame. An unorthodox time frame indeed, but you know, time is relative. These guys who control this market, as long as the setup is there, you know, it's valid. And sometimes you have to play when it comes to entry, you have to play with these lower time frames from the 1 minute through the 5 minute, or dare I say from 1 minute to the 15-minute, to find the setup that makes sense and take it. And you can see here that inside of our point of interest, we have price start to break down, take out some lows. We break down some more to take out more lows. And once we do that, I think we could all agree by the time price is up over here, we have a good synopsis that we are going to the downside. We're breaking structure after structure. And what we want to do is wait for price to either come up to our first point of interest here or to the second one being here for some sales. Well, praise God, that price actually comes up to the first area and we sell off. This is within the heart of our New York session. So it's in our window of opportunity for New York session. So it's not like we are forcing a trade or trying to have a trade, dare I say, be chased with FOMO, right? This is all part of what we're looking for. And with the lower time frame entry, our first target would be the low from Tuesday, right? The same equal lows that we see here, right? And then after that, we have this low. And you know me, I'm holding these trades. So these trades will be held until we have reached our imbalance. Most of our positions should be off by that point. And then we are just going to be holding it until the market says otherwise. So for that day, for the day of, what day was this? This was Thursday. So on Thursday, this is something that could have equated to a 21%, right? 121. Obviously, we can see that price continued to go lower. And now that is floating 32% to 1. And this is like an ideal setup, an ideal trade. This is something that, based off the scope of what we were talking about, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Just clean this up a little bit. We can just keep this as reference for an equal low. I advise you guys to definitely maybe copy what you see here for your reference, because all of this was laid out and planned out from Monday and Tuesday's class, right? All these things we were looking for. And all you had to do was, when the time came during our times to trade, is look for the opportunity and execute. That's pretty much it, right? So that was EU. We could move on to GU, which also had very similar setup, right, and execution. So we go to GU, right? We see a very a deeper expansion lower than what we saw with EU, but nevertheless, we're looking for the same things, right? And by Tuesday's class, this is Tuesday here, we were wanting for price to at least come up into the imbalance that we can see on the 1 hour. Above that, there was some equal highs, right? And above the equal highs and the imbalance, there was an order block that we would have loved for price to get into, right? But price didn't quite get there. Does that mean that the setup wasn't a setup that was valid? Absolutely not. Because nothing changed as far as what we were expecting price to do. We notated the fact that we rejected on Tuesday a very sensitive area. We were between the 1.2025 quarter level and the 1.2000 whole level, as far as these key bank levels are concerned, represented by these two dotted lines that we see here that caused the gap a few weeks back, right? So we're in very sensitive price territory. So we notated that, and we were expecting price to come into the imbalance, like I mentioned, and maybe even as deep as the order block here. What did we end up seeing? We saw price take out the high from Tuesday, and that's our key, right? If I zoom in on the 1 hour here in the bottom left, we see that Tuesday's highs gets taken out. We can see in the 1 hour that we're pretty close to these equal highs here, right, between these 2 points. We pierced that, just barely missed our equal highs and even the imbalance, but that's okay. Because once price pierces it, and now let's zoom in into the 15-minute, right? Let's have the 1 hour here and the 15-minute here for reference. On Wednesday, when we pierced that high, what happens? We had news on I want to say for Wednesday for GBP, price pierces the high. We start to break down. And once we break down, we come back up into an order block and we continue to mitigate order block after order block and drop. By the time New York session came through, let's fast forward. Let's go back to the 1 hour just again for reference. By the time New York session came through, we have imbalance being left over. Price fills those imbalances with wicks and whatnot. We can see that we actually touched the wick of a 15-minute candlestick here, which is also just aiding into the whole story of price kind of bunny hopping its way lower and lower. Despite the news event come 2 o'clock on Wednesday, I think for the FOMC stuff, price never continued to go higher, right? Was fast as the last, price explodes, and then we, sure enough, end up going lower, right? Now, that was Wednesday. And all of that stuff on Wednesday is happening inside of this wick. And inside that wick, we see all of this stuff happening on the 1 hour and all of this happening on the 15-minute. Come Thursday, well, you may be asking yourself, well, where are some opportunities, right? So as we now go to Thursday's price action, we are still in the mindset of price being bearish, especially considering, well, we have now revisited the low end of our little dotted lines here where our gap was. Okay, although we have a wick here, this is still it's acting as quote unquote support for the retail traders. And that's confirmed with the movement, the bullish movement of price action that's enticing retailers to buy, considering that it's at a support area. But lo and behold, the price does end up buying during the London session, only to take out intermediate highs from the Asian range, revisiting 15-minute order block, and from there, we go lower. And price falls. When we dive into the lower time frame on Thursday, okay, Thursday's price action here, we get to see more evidence of price looking to go to the downside, right? Remember, this is where price has mitigated the 15-minute order block and has taken out, right, very quickly the liquidity from the Asian high. From then, price starts to break down. We break down, and we start to respect these order blocks, right? And again, we had that whole situation of price bunny hopping its way lower. We could take it further and go to lower time frames. Let's go all the way to the 1 minute to see. I think 2 minute might be a little bit cleaner as far as all this price action. Let's go to the 2 minute real quick. Okay. So within the 2 minute time frame, right? Again, price is respecting order blocks here, come breaking down. We leave imbalance. We come into the 50% of that imbalance, right? We then start to, again, break down and break down. So there's multiple chances of entries. If it wasn't in the morning here, or you didn't get in here, or didn't get in here, right? When price rejects twice the imbalance, well, there's another opportunity to get in here. And lastly, here before price just nosedives. And again, this is all within the scope of what's happening inside of this 1 hour area here. Right? This is all happening inside of here, which is all inside of the tippy top of the daily candlestick here. But ultimately, what is it doing on the daily, right? We are playing inside of this order block on the daily time frame. And remember, the market is fractal. So as we break down that candlestick and we go lower, now we got to see the distribution and the price action from Wednesday. And then now we're on Thursday, and we could see more examples of price taking out liquidity, distributing, and going lower. What's also interesting too, just to kind of go back in the whole theory of the retail trader, once we got this bullish explosion at our quote unquote support area, it leaves a bullish flag pattern. So telling the retail trader confirmation that price is looking to go higher, only for it to ultimately just take a nosedive. And now they're sitting there confused, chasing, wondering what the heck they missed. Right? That was Thursday. And when we look into Friday's price action, right, after the fall, okay, which brings us over here. After that fall, we get to see that we get good price action during the London session that respects the 50% of the Asian range and drops. And what is that hitting? The last time price bought here during the Asian range to go lower. Take y'all time this weekend to go into the lower time frames, like the 1, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, and look inside before price took that dive. Look inside that area and you will learn a lot. Again, it's all about refining and understanding price action. So when next week rolls about, we are not sitting there confused and dazed on what to do with the market. By the time New York is in play, there could be some lower time frame entries here. But, you know, I'm more of the type to be safe than sorry. With price extending so far, this is not enough of a pullback for me to look for some type of entry, right? But there is an entry inside of here during the lower time frame. I'm gonna let you guys go out there and study, because what fun is it if I just give you all the answers, right? So ultimately, very good week for GU and EU respectively. All of our targets got hit. The only thing that we were expecting with GU outside of EU was just a higher bit of movement inside of the zone. But nevertheless, the high being raided from Tuesday and the price action that came from Wednesday's raid all was indicative of the fact that price was going lower. And if you missed any type of entry from Wednesday, Thursday yet again gave a great opportunity for price to end up selling. And and just like with EU, the clues was definitely there, with these lows being here. We had these lows being marked from weeks ago now, right? And ultimately what we're expecting, and we'll talk about this on Sunday, but for price to raid these lows as well. But we'll see. All right, so that was GU and EU. Now AU. You'll see that a lot of these USD quoted pairs are relatively the same. We were monitoring on AU just what's going on inside of this imbalances. We just barely pierced it. We wanted on Tuesday night the same thing that we wanted for EU and GU, for the high of Tuesday to get taken out. Let me clear that. The high of Tuesday to get taken out and then price to go lower, right? Unfortunately, that's not what ended up happening, which is okay. Instead, price, we danced around all of Tuesday. Come Thursday, price pulled higher. And we did have news for AUD as well, right? But as you can see, 15-minute and 1 hour, price dipped, took out some lows, maybe even created some equal lows here. And then we pulled back into, right before London session, into an order block. And from there, price took a nosedive. And finding entries outside of the Asian session, I would admit, would be pretty difficult. Look at the New York session. This is nothing we want to be involved with. I know I don't want to be. But all of Wednesday took out our targets here, our target here. And just looking at the momentum and close of Wednesday, I mean, all intents and purposes is for price to now reach our next low. Right? And when we look at the price action on a lower time frame here on Thursday, and now we are at the New York session here, well, what ends up happening on Thursday? We have the same price buildup, only to take out some more intermediate highs, but revisiting yet another order block for price to go lower. What really is exciting to see is that during the time frames of the New York session, price is rebalancing the checkbooks before each drop. And what I mean by that is that it's revisiting and filling in the imbalances before price ends up going lower. And it leaves the clues as well, because this is an intermediate low on a lower time frame that gets broken, that leaves the displacement and that displaces and leaves the imbalance. And then now we have a beautiful entry to go to the downside. And if Thursday wasn't a beauty for some sells, well, Friday gave another beautiful entry for a sell. Same thing when we're respecting the Asian range 50% level during New York time frame or New York time. And I want to say it might be cleaner on the 30-minute. Let's just check. Okay. One more. Okay. So 30-minute time frame, we can see stemming from the previous day, price respecting an order block, then respecting another order block, and then we come back into some imbalances, and price takes a nosedive. So very good setups on EU with our major targets being hit, respectively. And this is just another example too, how we can expect something, right? Because we wanted and was expecting price to pierce these highs. I think it was news or something, but we wanted these highs to get pierced and then we have a fall, but it didn't quite happen, right? Instead, price decided to fall, leave some relatively equal lows. We then pulled back into that range, okay, from Wednesday. We pulled back into that range, and then we mitigated and dropped, which is fine. It's in the scope of what we want, right? Now, I want to say NU, the Kiwi, did do exactly what we're looking for, right? Where we were looking for that same, I'll just switch back and forth real quick. But you can see with AU, we still have the same, roughly the same imbalance. And I want to focus your eyes to here, right, on the daily. But we had the same imbalance roughly. But on NU, we can see we pierced Tuesday's high, which is great. We also had major news during I think that night, I forgot what the news event was, but nevertheless, we wanted what we wanted happened. And you can see here on the 1 hour time frame, we speak about price respecting order blocks and how with news we get these raids because obviously news is the excuse and they're going to use that to raid and attack liquidity. And but all in all, we still respect the order block in question. And what I mean by respect is that we never close above the order block. That's when we kind of know that an order block is invalid and that we may be wrong in our synopsis or our analysis, I should say. Right? We have to kind of deal with these liquidity voids and swipes, if you will. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to swipe liquidity and most likely revisit either imbalance or another order block and then go lower. In this case, we can see that it revisited an imbalance here, but respected the order block on the 15-minute. Excuse me, on the 1 hour time frame. Going into the 15-minute here, we can see more evidence of all the liquidity that was from Tuesday and half of or the beginning of Wednesday. The high of Tuesday also holding liquidity, how we pierce it very quickly. And once right after we pierce it, now we start to break down to go lower. And like I mentioned with AU, I would admit, pretty tough to try to find a entry because our setup is not within this movement, right? However, this is why I even said yesterday during our boot camp that you don't have to be first, right? Shout out to Stan, you just have to be right. And come Thursday's price action, I'm trying to get everything on board here. Come Thursday's price action, well, yet again, we have the bamboozle of retail traders, right? Consolidation, nice little whipsaw. But while they're thinking price is bullish, well, where's price really going into? And then turning around going bearish. And how do we know price is going bearish? Well, look at all the momentum we saw from Wednesday and even from the beginning of the week, Monday, to take us down to where we are at. And we had some major lows, equal lows, I should say, that we were targeting since, I want to say 2 weeks ago. And lo and behold, price reaches for it. And what's even better, keep in mind this 1 hour area. Matter of fact, I'll even highlight it. Keeping in mind this 1 hour area, if you look at my 15-minute on the right, you can see just how that also tied into a 15-minute order block for another beautiful entry at a perfect time for us to look for trades on the in the New York session. And then Friday comes through, and just like all the rest of the New York pairs that we've already looked at, we've respected the 50% area of the Asian range. From that, we see prices literally walking down from order block to order block to order block to order block. And even on a nice base supply area for the New York session. So some very, very good price action for these USD pairs. We're about to get into the crosses right now. But I mean, excellent. This is something that we really want to see, especially considering where our target was off the daily time frame. And I mean, it was just beautiful. Take note also, we'll discuss this more on Sunday, but take note to how aggressively we're selling. And that should tell you exactly what the market is trying to do, right? We're aggressively going to the downside. For me, that would mean price is looking to continue to go lower. And you could just kind of tell a very aggressive move down. We did have a nice, I want to say choppy, but healthy price action here. But all the buys are nice and slow in comparison to the aggressive sells that we see. That should tell you something about the overall bias that we have with most of these pairs. Okay, now the crosses. Not the crosses. We still have UCAD. So UCAD, another one that we were expecting and quite went into the way that we wanted, was us monitoring when price got into here. We discussed this already from Monday and Tuesday. Price yet again exploded, leaving the imbalance. We were speaking on this guy here as a swap area, like a swap zone. But by the time Tuesday's closure, we're like, okay, this is fine. We did go a little bit deeper. Now let's see what happens when price revisits the imbalance. We would love to see price take out the low from Tuesday and then see some kind of expansion higher. And sure enough, we end up doing that. Now, granted, it wasn't the deepest of retracements, which is fine. We could have even refined the imbalance to being this 1 hour area here. And roughly about the median point, we see price reject. But nevertheless, we do see, and let's just get this, there it is. We do see on that Wednesday, price doing lovely things, right? Consolidation, right during pre-London, we pierce the lows and then boom, we expand. Like the other USD pairs, I would have to humbly admit it would have been a little bit tougher to find an entry during the day, but the breadcrumbs were left and we can clearly see them on the 1 hour here. And I'm gonna put it respectively here. How price during the news in the afternoon respected it, and then the previous day also respected it. Not the previous day, sorry, the next day respected it. So I will actually mark it off. I'll include the wick for reference. And as we can see on the 15-minute here, come Thursday, we now have broken structure to the high. We pull back down into a discount, again, back into this blue shaded area, not breaking the this intermediate low from Wednesday. And then when we look into the price action here, let's go to lower time frame. Where are we? There we are. When we look into the price action here from Thursday, well, we have our breadcrumb. And price is now respecting, this is the FU candle, price is respecting that area. Oops, sorry, you can't see the FU candle, which is here. Price respects this area, and we just take off, right? Now, granted, this entry here would not have been my favorite because we're not at, like from the expansion, we're not at a discount. We didn't really break down lower, right? So this would have been a little bit tricky to take, but it is still valid. The favorite ones would have been either inside of here or inside of here, and lastly here before price took off. But yet again, it is all within our scope of time, right, during the New York session for us to take and look for trades and setups. And alas, we would have been very good to go. Come Friday, we have a lot of, I would say, a lot of healthy price action. And by healthy, I'm saying there's an even distribution of buyers and sellers without this movement. We can see that clearly. Let me put that the 1 hour. You see that very cleanly and clearly with the 1 hour price movement. It's a lot of back and forth, which is actually a good thing in the market. As far as entries and setups are concerned, there was some decent entries during the London session. Let's go back to the 50-minute just for, oops. All right, so a lot of good entries, especially considering one of our daily cycles variation of price respecting the high of Asian range. And within its respect of the Asian range high, we see an order block that during the London session hits beautifully and price goes off. A little choppy during the New York session here, right? Where price does happen to just go just underneath this guy here, but nevertheless, still a good point of interest to look for price to attack this high and then go on further. So when we look on the daily time frame, we knew exactly where we were going. Even if you didn't catch a trade during Thursday, right? We knew for sure that we were looking to attack these highs, and ultimately, most likely next week, us to close out this gap here with a body of a candlestick. But yet again, based off of our bias and based off our setup with USD CAD, this is beautiful. Okay, now the crosses with EA and GA, and I think that will end it for us. So with with EA, we were kind of between a rock and a hard place in the beginning of the week. We wanted to see price continue to go higher, and wanted to see what it would do when we reach, you know, points of interest right here, and ultimately see if we will finally reach and take out this guy. Well, we can see that definitely today wasn't the best day for trades. Looking at this sideways movement is just not something that we want to be a part of. But on Thursday and even on Wednesday, okay, especially considering the news, we had a thought process that price was going to continue going higher. And during the London session, 15-minute time frame, we had a beautiful entry inside of here to take us higher, right? And this is all stemming from, you know, imbalances being filled and order blocks being respected to take us to where price exploded during the London session. Now, after this huge expansion, right, we have to take notice of what price action is doing. And for an intraday type setup, right, we can see just how price creates the equal highs. We pierce those equal highs and fall. 15-minute time frame, we see the equal highs. We pierce it and price falls. So for an intraday setup during the most likely the London session, would have been a good opportunity to look for shorts, right? Granted, I don't think it's going to continue going lower, and considering how we did the rest of the week, right, for Friday, this is not indicative of anything as of right now, right? And again, we will revisit this next week to see where it could end up going before it eventually starts to attack these highs and ultimately this high. But we'll say that EA was a little bit more difficult to kind of approach, especially when we were considering Monday and Tuesday's price action. But Wednesday night, right before London, all intents and purposes were priced to go higher, especially when we started to reject our quote unquote resistance created from the high of Monday, and we just barely reached it on Tuesday. But nevertheless, this was our target, especially when we see the reaction thereof and how we had a pullback into a very good area to take it higher. All right, last but not least, GA. More of the same. In the beginning of the week, we were just trying to see where we were at from the high and the low from Monday. By the time Tuesday came through, there was a imbalance here. Shout out to Steve. He had looked for a markup, looking for more clarification on what he was seeing. He was marking off this whole area as imbalance. We refined it to show that really what the imbalance we should be focusing on was on this 1 hour here. When price dipped into that 1 hour or 1 hour imbalance, that's when we started to see, you know, price showing its signs that it wanted to continue going higher. We never came back to the point of interest here. However, we consolidated throughout all of London. We then pierced the low from that consolidation, and from then we had New York session entries, right, into some very key areas to take us higher. And where we're going higher into, where we're looking to take out the high from Monday, and boom, we take that. Continuing the week, once that mission is accomplished, and we're into the Wednesday time, where we're having the momentum go bullish, and we want to monitor and see what would happen when we come inside of here, right, this daily area. We can obviously see now that we just blasted through it, but ultimately, we wanted to see price revisit this imbalance and take out these two equal highs. So when Wednesday comes through and we see that Monday and Tuesday was in agreement with the bullish sentiment, well, come the Wednesday price action, all we have to do is try to find a point of interest for us to get in. Now, I would say, yet again, that's a little bit more difficult to find a solid entry. However, the setup is there in the case of what price action was doing, because we have imbalance here that gets respected, and from there, price starts to break on higher, right? During the New York session of that same day on Wednesday, didn't do much of anything, but then we started to see price break down during the afternoon sessions, right? See break of structure, price is just breaking all these structures, creating liquidity, breaking it, etc., etc. And by Thursday, I would admit I would not expect such a huge drop, right? But does it make sense? It should always be your question. And considering that we have taken out the equal highs, we have filled the imbalance, we have mitigated the daily order block. Once you start to see the breakdown stemming from Wednesday's price action, and now that we're in Thursday, we can see price on the 1 hour respecting this FU candle. When we're inside that area, we see here prior to New York, sorry, not New York, but London, price again respecting the order block, and we're just breaking down, and we continue going lower. This being the last area of interest during the New York session for price to continue to break down. Come Friday, we have more of a sell-off, and we can see that sell-off is stemming from this 1 hour order block here. And during the New York not New York, but the London session, again, we respect the 50% of the Asian range, and then we break down. A little bit slower of a Friday, but for an intraday setup during the London session, again, this is where homework comes in. Look inside lower time frame, inside of when price revisited the imbalance left from this impulsive move down that broke the structure. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I think that's all we have. I think we have gold. One thing that we're looking for gold, just to be very quick with it, is that we were expecting price to go again bearish. Again, considering when we filled up all the imbalance here, considering how we started off the week with this pattern, and knowing that we did have lower targets, and now target reached. For homework, go ahead and look at within the week after Monday and see all the opportunities and post them in the platform. Post them in the classroom, and let's study it. Study it over the weekend, because there's a lot of good areas and points of interest in which price respected to reach down into the imbalance. And maybe you can see them even now on the 1 hour. Okay. But that is it. That's our hour. If there's any questions, please drop them in the chat now. If not, then we can go ahead and close this down. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for spending your I guess your afternoon or late afternoon with me. Hope y'all had a wonderful weekend and had a better week from this trading. And I'll see you guys on Sunday for the outlook. All right, much love, y'all. Y'all stay wealthy, my friends, and peace.